When I open a new notepad, a million stories, as movies, play out before my very eyes. A blank white canvas burns its image into the darkness of my mind. It spins and twirls before me into a splattered easel, spreading the words out onto all creation. I love it. I bask in the glory of creation. I'm an artistic dabbler, and so I do many different arts. I go into a trance sometimes when I'm writing, and suddenly before me appears a new text document with epic tales and great emotion. Only part of the time, though. Many other times, in fact, more often, when the trance occurs and writes a story from my mind, nothing comes out of it. All I face is bloody night terror and a catatonic state for a while. When I'm unable to create anything, I get very low sometimes. Well, I get very low many times. Sometimes I sit alone under the stars, gazing into the darkness, watching the specks of light from thousands of years in the past. I sit wishing, hoping, praying for something new. The night before my very eyes becomes an image from the Starry Night of Vincent van Gogh. I stare off into the cosmos, seeing the gaping scar through the sky of dust and stars on a moonless night. The Milky Way. The Milky Way entices me. All the stars around entice me. I wish to see them all. See them all in its entirety. The entire universe, but yeah, that'll never happen. One of those nights, I couldn't write anything and sat out under the stars. I noticed a vehicle driving past, very, very slowly. Drove by a few times, and I noticed it was a weird sort of car and sounded different. It sounded like George Jetson's car from the show The Jetsons, and the lights on it were strange. The car was newer than I have ever seen. It seemed rather different, but I just thought it was probably one of those new electric hybrids or something, and continued sitting out. Over the next few days, I got a few new subscribers on YouTube and finally wrote another damn story and posted it on a day. And then on a day when I attempted to write, couldn't, failed, sat staring at nothing, a knock came at my door. A man stood before me, someone new. "It's you," he exclaimed. "I recognize you from your videos. I can't believe I'm meeting you." Puzzled, I looked at him. He said he was my biggest fan. I thought that he couldn't have seen me more than a few days. What does he mean, my biggest fan? I greeted him, and he looked at me so oddly, with such a sadness in his eyes. The man stood 6 foot. He was a frosty blonde and had strangely colored blue and green eyes with odd sunglasses on. His clothing was like some kind of a silver jumpsuit. His build was slender, and he carried a briefcase. He asked if he could come in, just to hang out with me for a while and talk. He looked fine to me. I didn't feel anything wrong in the vibes coming off of him. He showed me a blunt he rolled up, said he wanted to smoke it with me, and I agreed to let him in. May have been 6 foot and slender, but I figured I could handle myself. He looked like an art major in college, and I felt no malice from him, only sadness and excitement. He followed me into my room and sat down. After a few minutes, he lit up his blunt and we smoked it. He talked about one of my recent videos I posted and loved hearing me go on about that video. We continued chatting for a long time. And every time I went on about projects, he was happy to listen. He would occasionally go on about how influential I was, how he would tell me I didn't even know how happy he was to meet me and hear me talk in person. He kept wanting to say so much about me, but he stopped himself every time. Often he would change the subject. I was so dumbfounded at how this fan was acting. I was so happy to meet a real fan finally, even though the fan had to be crazy. He only must have subscribed within a few days, but here he was going on about how I was like one of the greatest artists of my time. And, I didn't understand. After a while, he decided it was time to go. Looked me over and sadness filled up his face. He told me to keep up the good work, but hearing him say it, he didn't believe that I would be. Eventually started to leave, but first he asked if I could hug him. So I did. He told me he loved me. Can't wait to read my next story. And then he left. I sat back, reflecting on that visit. Eventually I went to bed. I kept that in the back of my mind, but it was such a strange occurrence. I was so confused. But anyways, a few days passed since then, and I sat at a blank notepad again, and the trance occurred. I wrote this here. Thinking back to the other day and that visit with the fan as I lay here, my mood is sunk into its lowest again. But at least I have a new story. It finally occurred to me, just as I lay here writing this, drifting off into sleep, solemnly gazing upon the bottle of pills. The fan from the other day is in fact a time traveler.